Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, June the 18th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's produced the program. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So as you know, as hockey fans, Game 5, another elimination game tonight for the Edmonton Oilers as they visit the Florida Panthers. So down 3-1 in the series, the little bit of pressure now gets heaped on the Panthers, not to overestimate the impact of an 8-1 victory for the Oilers in Game 4. And of course, you know, talk about setting records, which is always fascinating if you're a sports watcher. Connor McDavid has broken Wayne Gretzky's record for the number of assists in a single playoff season. So he's got 32 assists leading into tonight. So he could probably put this a little bit out of reach if he has a couple of hot games here. So Gretzky, of course, holds the next 3 spots on the record for assists in a playoff season, including back in 84-85, where he had 30 assists and 47 points, which is a Stanley Cup record for all skaters. All right, and Dave Williams, big basketball fan. Last night, the NBA Finals wrapped up. The Boston Celtics beat the Dallas Mavericks in Game 5. It's their 18th NBA title, breaking the record, breaking the tie they had with the Los Angeles Lakers. Think back to the 80s, where I watched a lot of basketball, and there was only 3 teams won a championship in the 80s. The Lakers, the Celtics, and the Philadelphia 76ers with Moses Malone won 1 title. And this is a great one. So, I don't know if you're watching tennis, but one of the big grass tournaments leading into Wimbledon is the Queen's Club Championship. And yesterday in the first round, Canadian Milos Raonic, who was in the Wimbledon final back in 2016, he reached number 3 in the world. Yesterday, he fired a record for aces in a 3-set match, an ATP record. 47 aces in a 3-setter. He won on a tiebreak over Great Britain's Cam Norrie, who was a pretty tough customer. So, pretty fascinating stuff. 56% of his points on serve came from aces. He had 5 aces in the tiebreak in the 3rd set alone. So Raonic maybe looks like he's going to have to take on American Taylor Fritz in the 2nd round. So that's 2 big bombers who'll be playing each other if that indeed is the matchup. Another quick one, talk about records in the world of sports. On this date in 2000, at the 100th U.S. Open men's golf tournament, that year held at Pebble Beach, Tiger Woods won his first U.S. Open major by a record 15 strokes over Ernie Els and Miguel Angel Jimenez. So 15-stroke win at the U.S. Open is amazing stuff. All right, let's go to the water. So lots of people still with concerns, and of course it's been an economic savior in certain parts of the province when we talk about aquaculture, fish farming, open pen farming out in the bays. It looks like the federal government is set to ban open pen farming in British Columbia. There's long been some concerns on that coast, and we wonder how the feds treat it so much differently on the west coast of the country versus here in Atlantic Canada. So it looks like they're going to give them a 5-year transition time frame, and not sitting well with the BC Salmon Farmers Association, obviously. Here's some of the quotes. The plan forward communicated in this article does not reflect a realistic, responsible and achievable approach to a transition. Neither is it supported by science, including that of the government's own scientists, who have repeatedly stated that salmon farming in BC poses no more than minimal risk to wild Pacific salmon. Certainly not the thought associated with aquaculture in many corners in this province, the impact on the wild stock. So interesting that that's the way it's going to be handled. Now, the ramifications for this side of the country, the worries, as stated by, of course, with self-important interest at stake here, is that if and when it feels like that might be the next steps for Atlantic Canada, what would that mean in investment? Now, many people listening to the program this morning may indeed think that open pen farming is a problem. We've seen some of the mass die-offs and some of the advancements in technology, and this is not support or against the industry, period, just forward note. Deeper nets, aeration, escape-proof nets like Grieg says they have in Placentia Bay, and if you want to take on the aquaculture conversation, let's do exactly that this morning. Let's stick with the water. So I've had a bunch of people who work in the oil industry kind of floating out some of the work that continues on behalf of Equinor with the possibility of Beta North to come to pass at some point in the future. At the most recent Energy NL conference, the representative from Equinor says they're continuing to work towards it, trying to rejig the business model. But one of the issues that I wonder what kind of hurdle this may be playing, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars on the table here when we look at the possibility for Canada to possibly become the first country on earth to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in international oil royalties. Why? Because of Article 82 at the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So it says countries like Canada, known as a broad margin state, larger than normal continental shelves, if you extract offshore oil beyond your 200-mile nautical mile limit, then you may indeed have to pay these royalties to developing countries. So Canada signed on to this agreement at the United Nations. The province has fought a little bit with Ottawa on this front, saying, look, Canada signed on, not Newfoundland and Labrador. Consequently, the country should pay these hundreds of millions of dollars. Of course, the Fed say not so fast. So we wonder, because we are talking substantial money here, if this is one of the hurdles, it'd be great to have a little bit of inside baseball understanding of exactly what's going on that front. Because you know full well, that's a major concern to Equinor. They'd be absolutely disinterested in paying that monies to the United Nations, but anyway. And you heard Linda Swain, who's got a wealth of knowledge on this particular topic, and this is the one-year anniversary of the loss of OceanGate's Titan, the semi-submersible, of course, imploded, all 5 on board dead. Lots of confusing grey areas here. Not registered in any country, and then some of the internal rift between the Transportation Safety Board in this country and Transport Canada. So Transport Canada says they have no jurisdiction over the submersible, but the Transportation Safety Bureau says the investigation has also established that there are Canadian regulatory requirements regarding these operations, and there is an internal Transport Canada policy on passenger submersible craft dated June 2005. So which is it? So it's, of course, a tragic anniversary. The search continues all this 1 year later. So the Marine Transportation Safety Board in the United States, they released some information on Monday. So obviously the investigation has to be complete, but I will wonder aloud, what exactly are they looking for and what can be gleaned from it? Lots of reports about a crack in the hull that was understood, and of course OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush, who was interviewed by Linda, and they played it on the morning show this morning. It's really quite eerie, knowing that it's the voice of a dead man who, because of his willful blindness to some of the risks associated with going down to the Titanic, he dies on board. I'll add one more to it, and I heard Larry Daly, who's been down to the Titanic before, of course in a different type of vessel, but wondering whether or not, if you're going to row across the Atlantic, if you're going to go down to the Titanic in one of these semi-submersibles, whatever the case may be, particularly risky adventures, should you not have to have some insurance to cover liabilities for what in this case is tens of millions of dollars in the search and rescue effort, which took some 4 days. The investigation continues. No final price tag on it, but that's going to be in the millions as well. So I know that feels and sounds a bit cold, but I think it's probably worthwhile discussion if you're so inclined. 1 year ago today, the Titan gone, imploded, 5 dead. Amazing story. All right, let's keep going. Last week of school. Okay, and there's lots of things we can talk about. And when I spoke to the story that was in the media, I guess it was last week, about the long-term impact on bullying, this one lady who was quoted, she's been graduated from high school for 10 years and is still, quote-unquote, haunted by how she was bullied from grade 1 right through high school. And then it was the impact when social media became a big player, just how much worse it made things. No longer was school hours the place where she got bullied and at the time she got bullied, but of course it became persistent. And it's easy enough for people to pile on. So let's talk about the education system and or this particular school year if you're so inclined. Just want to try to encapsulate something that I saw on social media. I'll give it my best crack here. And it was a teacher, I believe in Minnesota, speaking with her classroom, and the voices really sounded like they would say grade 4, grade 5, or maybe grade 3. And it was about how to talk about bullying. And I think this is probably pretty important for all parents of school-age children, because who knows if your child's on the receiving end and or is acting like a bully in school. So it was basically, the summary was, she was telling her children, if what you're going to say to someone can't be rectified in 30 seconds or less, then don't say it. And what she meant by that, and she also included a tube of toothpaste to say, to describe where if you say something that's going to be hurtful, it's hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube. So basically, she said things like, if you tell someone they've got a lint fuzzy on their shoulder, and or their fly is down, or your shoe is untied, something that can be done and dealt with in 30 seconds or less, then those are the type of comments that are fine, best kind. But things that can't be addressed, like your hair, or your skin, or your body shape, or your lack of coordination, or your glasses, or whatever it is that can't be dealt with in 30 seconds or less, don't say it. It's probably a really easy to understand message for our children, because sometimes inadvertently you might just think that it might not be hurtful, but the person on the receiving end may indeed be hurt. So the 30-second or less rule, I thought that was a fascinating way to take on that particular topic. And let's talk about education. And all right, this story's been banging around in my mind for a couple of days since I initially read it, and it's about the numbers of children in provincial care and the amount of money associated with, especially children with complex needs. So what that means, anybody's guess. So it could be emotional, behavioral, and or interaction with the criminal justice system, whatever it is, and they've got nowhere to go. And so the province, of course, has a responsibility to care. But it's the amount of money and whether or not we're getting the intended positive outcomes. So just for context, these are huge sums. $400,000 per child on average last year to house and care for kids with complex needs. $400,000 per child per year. Amazing stuff. They break it down from the 913 children that are in care to some of the most troublesome youth and inside these staffed group homes. There's some 140 of them. It really doesn't look like things are going very well. Now, the department responsible hasn't had much to say on it, but to know that we're spending millions of dollars. Last year, $19 million alone in one calendar year. That's up from $30 million in 2018-2019. So, how are we tracking these children? And inside that group home of the group homes of 140, about 75% historically don't get through high school, and you know what that means for their future. So when we can acknowledge that whether it be in the emergency shelter world, of which we're the only province, I think, in the country that pays private landlords for these emergency shelters, and the way that we're housing and how we're dealing with children with complex needs, and the staffing, the inexperienced staff, and or the problems with staffing, and the staff turnover, these children are absolutely falling through the cracks, and you can't predetermine exactly what their fate will be, but very, very, very few success stories. People are able to transition into meaningful, gainful employment, reasonable adulthood, as opposed to what you have to believe are children that end up being troubled adults at the exact same time. So that issue is massive. And another story, and many of the people working with these youth will be social workers or trained in social work. And when we first heard the story about the shortage in social work, and the number was 99 vacancies, and now that's grown, so it's only getting worse. And of course, social workers aren't just in the world of health community services, they're right across the gamut. They're in education, they're in the criminal justice system. Yes, they're dealing with healthcare related matters, but the shortage is growing. And the age demographic most impacted by resignations are young social workers, because they're burnt out. They're dealing with some of the most complex needs, like child protection. Because in the world of seniority, of course, who would want to work in the most traumatic file? I guess some people would want to do that. But it's so traumatic that, of course, people would like to move on to other areas of social work. Consequently, young social workers, recent graduates, taking on that arduous task. And so what's the result? Bigger caseloads for those who remain as social workers on staff at NL Health Services or wherever else in the social work world, of which there are many areas they touch. But that number is growing, and that cannot be good for any of us, regardless if you need a social worker or not. All right, so still some questions to be asked about the Grace Nurses residence and the teardown. It's going to be replaced by a well-being centre. I did get an email from someone in the area when Minister Abbott said the testing has been done on some of the debris and the results were found not to be substantive. And this particular person, I'll leave their gender out of it because I'm not even really sure if it was a man or woman, was really furious and says they're going to keep fighting this because they believe that their testing shows it absolutely is problematic when we talk about the presence of asbestos. And we're also told that the site for the St. Clair's replacement will be understood or told in the coming weeks or months, even though that announcement came out of left field. And that brings me back down the road where I think we need more careful consideration and conversation about the P3 model. I really do. The public-private partnerships historically have not been a good idea. They've cost us more in the end. But the province here, and seemingly no real political opposition to it insofar as the elected members of the House of Assembly, and if that's mischaracterization, feel free to call if you're on one of the opposition parties and or an independent. If you want to take it on, let's go, but throw that out there. All right, a couple of quickies. How are we doing on the phone this morning there, David? All right, let's keep going. Where's that story I wanted to get to? All right, so tourism season is here, peaking shortly. And, of course, we can talk about accessible air travel and the affordability envelope, which is really out of whack for most people. Air travel is crazy expensive. And it just gets worse. So I read a story this morning that, some people would like to book their airline passage on the phone just to ensure that they can cover all the bases and make sure that everything is hunky-dory. And now, if you want to book with WestJet on the phone, it costs you $25. They charge you $25 to book a ticket, which is already expensive, via the phone. So, of course, yes, people can indeed book online, and it can be more convenient for some than booking on the phone. But everywhere you turn, more fees, more fees. Now, legally, the airlines can charge you whatever they like, as long as they're upfront about the fees that they're going to charge you. And, of course, when you see something advertised as it costs this much round trip Toronto, it doesn't cost that much. It costs more. Whether it be airport improvement fees, baggage fees, $25 to book an airline ticket on the telephone. It's just never ending. But if you want to take on travel, we can do it. All right, a couple of quickies here. I can't even read my own writing here. Oh, so plenty of emails, not so much in the way of phone calls, regarding the curious political timing and whether or not this is a good idea or a bad idea. Is the government here considering suing the feds over equalization? And there's lots of different reasons that have been put forward by the government as to why they're considering this legal action, getting some support. Saskatchewan, British Columbia, and of course the natural focus, and of course Alberta has long said that the equalization formula is badly broken, but the keen focus on the millions and billions of dollars going to central Canada, right? Ontario and Quebec in particular. We're happy to take that on. And I've been talking about this story. Not a whole lot of conversation coming as a result, but we did have a call on it yesterday, and that's about the most recent report from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, NSICOP. So we should all probably tune out the politicians, regardless of the party and whatever leader speaking out, because all they've done is further muddy the waters. And yes, it might be all parties involved. Who knows? But thankfully, the Hague Commission is going to take up the charge. They are indeed going to allow for the investigation to be part of their investigation into foreign meddling and the protection of democratic institutions. Here it goes. This is formally from the Commission and Justice Hague. The Commission will conduct this examination as part of its ongoing work under Clause C of its current terms of reference. It should be noted that the Commission has access to all of the documents reviewed by NSICOP and how it bases conclusions. The Commission also has access to the documents consulted by the National Security and Intelligence Review Agency, which also examined the production and dissemination of intelligence on foreign interference in the last two Canadian elections within the Government of Canada. So this is the good news. Formally going to take up the charge. And all party leaders, as a reminder, have agreed that Justice Hague is completely up to the task and is trustworthy and is responsible. And so thankfully, that commission, that team, will have a good look at this report. So we have to find out exactly what went on. If there is problems that need to be investigated, we have to do it. Please, all political watchers, all citizens of the country. This is important to all of us. So let's see where that goes. And just a couple of mad ones. I heard just out of the corner of my ear when I was getting ready. Did Brian Medore say that there was the cops broke up a street racing racket last night, going 126 kilometers in the 50 zone? You know, they talked about the fact that I think he added this caveat, is that there's a 7-day suspension of their license. 7-day suspension for street racing. How about we make that a little bit more severe? And a couple quick hellos. So one of our listeners, Rod, is out in Canmore, Alberta. Ran into a fella from Calgary who apparently listens to this program on the podcast in the evenings. So shout out to Anthony. Whoever Anthony is from Calgary, thanks for tuning in. And Murray sent along a pretty cool item for us here on the show. So Murray from Burnt Islands, appreciate that. We're on Twitter. We're a VOCM Openline follow, sir. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Let's have a great show today. When we come back, we're going to be speaking with Michelle McDonald. She's with Brain Injury Canada. She's the CEO. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Well, June is Brain Injury Awareness Month, and in that effort, joining us on line number 4 is the CEO of Brain Injury Canada. That's Michelle McDonald. Good morning, Michelle. You're on the air.
Oh, hi, Patty. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you on the program. You know, you would think that people are well aware of the impact of a traumatic brain injury. And of course, back when we were playing sports in the 80s and 90s, if you had a concussion, maybe just refer to it as you got your bell rung. And we didn't get it diagnosed, and there wasn't a whole lot known. But apparently, there's still a lack of awareness regarding traumatic brain injury. Give us some idea of the prevalence of these injuries in the country.
Yeah, well, the brain injury is very prevalent, and we know how serious it can be. Canada's a little behind on our statistics, so I'd love to give you some updated stats on the incidence of traumatic brain injury. We don't really have any reliable stats. So for all acquired brain injury, that means traumatic and non-traumatic, there's probably over 2 million people that are living with that, but there's an estimated 400,000 concussions every year. So this is a really pressing situation that does not receive the acknowledgement or the care that it needs. So that's why we've been pushing through advocacy efforts for more of a spotlight to be shown on all brain injuries and the need for more supports and services and updated stats.
The word concussion, very much akin to me like bullying. Bullying is an all-encapsulating term that could indeed include acts of violence, as opposed to someone making fun of your freckles. But in the world of concussion, I've been trying to use brain injury as a reference versus concussion, because concussion sounds kind of innocuous. You got a knock in your head, it's going to go away, you're going to be okay. But in fact, a concussion is a brain injury.
Oh, absolutely it is. And I think through advocacy efforts, we've been, successful in showing that it's not just a concussion. Concussion is a serious, that without care, that people need to see their doctors. People need to follow recovery guidelines. And most people with a concussion do recover in 2 to 4 weeks. But there are some people that live with prolonged concussion symptoms. And so we've moved away from just a concussion to, yes, it is a brain injury. And people can live with it long term. And we know that it's not just from sports, it's from intimate partner violence. We're seeing an increased number of women that are living with concussion. The estimate is for every for every concussion in national sports and national hockey, there's 5,500 women in Canada that have the same injury, yet don't receive the same sort of treatment. We're also seeing an increase of concussion in seniors due to falls and having poor health outcomes because of lack of recognition, or they've fallen and they've hit their head, but they've also broken their hip, and their hip injury gets all the attention. So it's not just relegated to sports. Concussions is a massive issue across all age groups.
What are the short-term barriers? There's reference in your news release to some systemic challenges, but what are the short-term challenges?
Access to care. We know there's long wait times. People are hesitant to go to the emergency room because they know that they'll be waiting. They can be waiting, depending on where they are, anywhere from 5 to 15 hours. Access to consistent primary care. People need to have someone that's following their health for long term, and so there's many people that are orphan patients, and just the lack of knowledge about what the symptoms are of something like concussion, and then access to long-term support such as rehab, physiotherapy, occupational therapy. I mean, the barriers are huge in all areas, and that's why we need a national strategy to combat this.
And of course, we can't even count the unreported cases, because if you have a non-severe concussion and or brain injury, then you probably think, well, there's nothing anyone can do for me anyway. Why am I going to spend 12 hours in the emergency room to be told, well, you have to go home and rest? Because rest can indeed be the cure for I don't know if the right word is a simple concussion versus a severe one. So what should people know about that? Because if you just leave it unattended, you might be setting yourself up for a chronic or maybe a long-lasting impact.
Well, actually, rest is not the solution. Just for a short 24 to 48 hours, it's shown that a gradual return to physical activity benefits the brain. So that old cocoon theory of no screens, no dark room is actually detrimental to the brain. So we need to move away from that and have our primary care providers recognizing the new clinical guidelines around concussion and recognizing that people need a gradual return to physical activity. We don't want to exacerbate symptoms, but people do. Physical activity, being sunshine and being outside, does support recovery. Going to the doctor, yes, people don't go because maybe they've had one before and they think that they know how to treat it. but really we need them to go to the doctor so that we first of all have the statistics and incidences so we can, have the recognition that this is a severe and prevalent condition, but also so people are getting the proper care that they need to recover properly.
There is no Brain Injury Association in this province any longer. They ran out of funding. What does that mean for people in this province? Can they use your organisation as their advocate, or what do you think that creates as another shortfall?
So Brain Injury Association of Newfoundland and Labrador, they deliver community support. So they'd had day programs, they'd have day activities. We don't do that. We're not big enough to be able to do that in every province. So we focus on more education, advocacy, and awareness. So it is a huge gap for people in Newfoundland. Organizations such as March of Dimes are making inroads into the eastern provinces, but there's still that lack of community support. So peer support programs, drop-in programs that now are non-existent. There are some smaller community, groups that are doing. So there might be informal, groups that are doing, support groups, informal support groups. So I encourage people to Google in their area or to check their, local chamber of commerce, or to talk to their local hospital or healthcare provider to see if there's any of those supports. But it's definitely a huge gap in the area in that province. And I encourage people to write to their MLA to say how serious this is, and that the government needs to dedicate some funding to brain injury community supports.
We've talked about people who have suffered a brain injury themselves. What about their caregivers and family members? What do we need to know on that front? Because, of course, to manage any recovery requires the supports at home. So what do family members need to know?
Yeah, absolutely. Brain injury affects not just the individual, it affects the whole family. And families are often shouldering the burden of the lack of supports in our healthcare system. So family members are at risk of burnout. Their caregiving duties are also competing with if they have other children, or if if it's their spouse, or if it's one of their children, their other parental and family duties, as well as their other employment. So we know that the burden is lying on these family members. So seeking their own support, taking time for them. We've recently developed a series of courses, online courses that people can do at their own leisure, directly just to support caregivers. So they're an essential part of recovery, but we also need from the provincial government dedicated supports to ensure that they feel supported in the work that they have to do.
I appreciate your time this morning, Michelle.
And he's happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Take good care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Michelle McDonald is the CEO of Brain Injury Canada. Their website is a simple one. It's braininjurycanada.ca. Let's take a break. When we go back, the Titan disaster. Jason wants to talk about hook and release. Interesting choice of words. Some people refer to anglers going out and catching a release versus just the incident of actually hooking and losing and release. Colleen wants to talk about the home care negotiations and whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Good morning, Merv. You're on the air.
Well, good morning, Paddy. Thank you for the time. So I guess 1 year today, the Titan had imploded, and I had to ask the question, where did that time go? I can't believe it's gone so quickly.
No kidding.
I heard your preamble this morning, of course, and we know that yesterday there was a release from the Transport Safety Board making a statement about the delays in the investigation. I think the expectation was my expectation was that it would have happened long before now, certainly over the winter. We had been promised some consultations, some public hearings in St. John's and other places. So it didn't happen, but nevertheless, it really needs to move forward with, I believe, some level of urgency, especially in the light of some supposedly serious discussion around the idea that a couple more people, or a couple of billionaires from the United States, intends to dive and seems to be wanting to do it fairly soon. The idea that we could have an intelligent conversation or a serious conversation around that just absolutely blows me away without having, the benefits of recommendations and some in-depth analysis of all the issues, including jurisdiction and including, search and rescue planning and all the safety measures and protocols that we could put in place. So I hope that stays where it should stay at this point in time, Paddy, but I couldn't let the day go by without having some commentary, especially on the search and rescue front, an area that I'm deeply interested in, mostly because of the public and public safety. But, I have to reflect. I'm not an expert at all on standards, international standards and classification standards and so on, and certification. I do have some ideas about it, but this idea that we're into a no man's land of jurisdiction and that nobody could do anything about this, I just don't buy that.
I'm not sure what just a couple of quick notes. So the investigation is far from over, if I understand the release properly. But even something like, there's going to be lots of waters outside our jurisdiction that we have no control over, we have no say over. But if a Canadian port is going to be used as a launching platform, then if we just start with the fundamentals, that the vessel has to be registered with Transport Canada and an inspection done by Transport Canada and or the Safety Board before there's ever an allowance to be using one of our ports as a launching point. So maybe something as fundamental as that can ease or do away with some of the grey areas that currently exist. But maybe this is an obtuse question, but I'm not even 100% sure what the value is or what could be gleaned from this investigation. There's lots of stories about the willful blindness to a crack that was in the hull and repeated dives to depths that were creating problems and the noises that were being heard. So I'm not even sure what we're investigating at this point.
Well, no, you're making a good point. And look, many of the fundamentals have been worked out. Paddy, we have the International Maritime Organization, IMO, with the head office in London. And, there are member states of all coastal countries in the world, a signatory to that. And the protocols that applies to standards, whether it's safety or shipping standards, structural standards, it's really contained there. And really the protocols has been worked out through bilateral and trilateral agreements, whereby if a craft, a vessel or whatever is operating in a country like the Titan was operating in Canada, then it's up to Canada really to invoke all the measures necessary to have those safety measures in place. And then if they need to collaborate, and it is a collaborative framework, then they may have to call on the country in which the vessel is registered to enforce or to help them enforce the rules that should be there. So I don't think that's complicated. Apparently this craft, by the way, was registered in the Bahamas. Now that's in many cases considered a flag of convenience, but nevertheless it's done there for its reason. The company operated in the United States, and also the frontline operations was operating in Canada. But nevertheless, I think it really is, in the relevance of thing and in the context that you just posed, somewhat irrelevant. Look, prevention. This is where we are now. What can we do to stop this from happening again? Retrospect tells us that, look, we couldn't have saved these people, but retrospect also shows us some very serious flaws, not only in the structural issues and the approach that was taken, by the owners, but the very fact on the search and rescue front, there seemed to have been a total void of a search and rescue plan. I'm thinking that Sunday morning, and I have to put myself in that place, that Sunday morning that the craft went down, they lost communications. Around an hour after it went down, around 9:30, they knew there was no comms and so on. And the entire day went by. It was 5:30 that evening before someone said, hey, let's call search and rescue. Something seriously wrong with that. Then I look at, well, what was their plan? No one seems to have a written plan. No one seemed to have been talking to search and rescue officials to collaborate with the Joint Rescue Coordination Center or Marine Rescue Sub-Center in St. John's. There didn't seem to be any redundancies. Just a small aerial view, for example, with a drone may have discovered some debris and thereby eliminated that entire exercise that cost us millions of dollars and put the lives of people who are out there searching at risk. Was there an unmanned ROV on board? Doesn't cost a lot to carry that. You can pick that up, from the Marine Institute and have someone engaged to operate an unmanned ROV. That ultimately was what went down to discover the debris. That wasn't there. We have companies like Kraken Marine operating out of St. John's who are experts in deep water mapping and so on. None of that was engaged. And the list just goes on and on, the absence of a good plan. So can we identify that and flag that for the public? Can we have TSB Marine investigate that? Apparently that's in their main terms of reference. They're not the lead player in this. It's the United States. They're because the Polar Prince, who was the lead vessel in this operation, was out there and supposed to execute all planning, including search and rescue planning. Can we now take all of that information and coherently piece it together and invoke some kind of rules and regulations or protocols to say we will do this in the future? We can at least eliminate that component, and we may very well save some lives because of it, Teddy.
Maybe. And, I don't know how manageable this would be, but I do think for some of the extremely high-risk adventures that people are taking, rowing a little dory across the Atlantic Ocean or going down to the Titanic, and the tens of millions of dollars at least to conduct these search and rescue efforts, I really think they should carry some sort of their own private insurance to cover the liabilities. I know that, who gets to be the arbiter of what's a high-risk adventure, but things that are quite obvious, I think they should kind of foot some of the bills for their eventual search if indeed something goes wrong. I don't know what you think about that, but this is something that it was a death wish.
No, I agree, Patty. Absolutely. How do you invoke that? I don't know, but that's something to consider. And look, the public was involved there. This is just not an independent piece of work that the owner of this company was doing on his own. This is really extreme tourism dressed up as exploration. So let's call it what it is. And I think in that context, we really need to have the protocols and rules and regulations in place for that. But, even the crazy adventurers who decides, hey, I'm going to roll to England in a bathtub, they have a better plan and more redundancies built into their safety measures and exercise and have more proactivity from the marine rescue centers than this particular guy had. So that's, I look at that and I think, man, that's pretty crazy. I mean, the very least that could have been done here, since everybody knew that this was happening, is that somebody get a little proactive and say, hey, look, you're going out there. We think we're going to be involved. Let's look at your plan. Can we do at least a tabletop exercise? And maybe we have some suggestions and so on. I mean, like the absence of any kind of a plan. You talk about flying by the seat of your pants, and it's insane. It's crazy. And, I think for that very reason, somebody needs to be held accountable, and I think that's the reason that the investigation, among other things, should go forward with absolute urgency at this stage.
100%. I appreciate the time, Merv. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, thank you, Patty.
Take care.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye. It's such a tragic story, and hate to be, I don't know if the right words would be dancing on graves, but we just have to understand the risks and the associated costs with it when and if something goes wrong. Amazing story. Line number 3, Colleen, you're on the air. Hi, Colleen, on line number 3.
Good morning, Patty. How are you today?
Doing okay. How about you?
I'm great. I am a home support worker for the Clarenville area for the local 9211. I just wanted to put it out there that last night we had one single home support worker that took it upon herself to go out, stand in front of Walmart and rally for a petition to go into Jerry Earl to fight for our better wages, to have it put through to the government to receive $23 an hour, or for the government to take us under the wing like they did with the paramedics and make us public workers. And the support that she got and received from the public was phenomenal. In just over 2 hours, she was able to receive, I think it was 118 signatures from the public. So, I mean, this is what we need to do as home support workers, and I challenge every single home support worker across Newfoundland and Labrador to do the same. Get out, make your posters, make your banners, make it a mission to get those signatures into Jerry Earl and, put it forward to the government of home support workers what we deserve for the work and the care that we provide.
So that,
I just want to say...
fair enough, but this would be a good gauge of where the public is on this front, but what's the hope for the petition, sorry? Because, of course, they even to present it to government, and government wasn't even at the table with the negotiations with the group of 22, which I also find to be really quite strange. So what are we hoping to do with the petition beyond just gauge what the public thinks?
I'm sorry, Patty, could you repeat that, please?
Okay, so like when we put a petition forward talking about, well, so the home care workers should get this amount of money in the for the rate of pay. So you'll get some public support. But what's the hope for this petition? What are you hoping it actually achieves?
Well, I know for the particular worker that did start the petition, she had put there for $23 an hour. This is what she is hoping to receive. As PCA workers in a hospital environment, this is what they are receiving. And as home support workers, we feel as though we should receive the same amount of pay for the work that we do as well. Or if that cannot be given to us through the agencies, to deem us as public workers through the government, give us the same type of treatment as the paramedics received, make us government employees.
Well, yeah, which comes with obviously increased pay, expanded benefits, as opposed to be employees of a private home care agency working directly for the government. You know, some of the changes very much like what's been achieved for early childhood educators, for instance. So, and now they don't get the full gamut. And that's one of the things I'm also having a hard time processing, is the medical benefits for ECEs apparently can be achieved within 3 months. For home care workers, it's going to take a year. Why? Nobody has any idea. Now, we are talking about 22 different agencies, so it's a little bit more complicated than early childhood educators, granted, but 4 times as long? I'm not so sure that makes sense.
Well, I mean, right now it's no longer 22 groups anymore, because I mean some agencies decided to accept the offer that was presented to them. So the amount of agencies that maybe would be going forward with a negotiation for a better deal for us is going to be a smaller group.
Yeah, and I don't know how many of the 22 have moved on, which was one of the worries anyway, wasn't it? Because the agencies absolutely had all the control in their own hands. They could either accept the offer or not, proceed as they see fit. And apparently with no offer now currently being negotiated and or to be ratified, I'm sure many of them just have moved on.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, right now, like I said, personally, I think that we deserve the $23 an hour, or to be deemed as a public worker, to be taken under government employees. And I challenge every single person across this island of Newfoundland and Labrador to do the same. Get out there, get as many signatures as we can in this petition to present it to Mr. Jerry Earl, and keep this going until the end of this month, and see how many signatures we can get. Present it to them. I mean, personally for me, I know that I'm going to stand there with my sign. We're going to get as many home support workers as we can, and we're going to rally in front of Walmart and, Co-op, Sobeys, whenever we all work. So whenever, we can get out there and we can stand and get the support of the public, and you would be surprised the support that we have received from the public alone just for a few hours last night. It was phenomenal and amazing support from the public, and I want to thank everyone who took the time to put their signature on that petition.
I appreciate your time, Colleen. Thanks for the call.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye. Here we go. So I'm not surprised that the public will be in support of home care workers, because as we all know, and of course some people take this as some sort of slight, but it's not, we understand what the age demographic of the population of the province looks like. We see what the forecasted numbers are. We have these big conversations about aging in place and staying in your home longer with the required amount of support in the form of a home care worker and the required hours. So obviously people would be supporting home care. Let's take a break. When we come back, Jason, hook and release. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Jason. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How's everything?
Couldn't be better. How about you?
Not so bad.
Great.
I was just calling this morning, Patty, about the hook and release, or as you mentioned, the catch and release system on the provincial salmon rivers.
Yep.
I think it's a crying shame what they're doing. I mean, I'm a man, a family of 5, and throughout the season I'm allowed 2 salmon. Meanwhile, my next door neighbor can come down day after day, hook 4 salmon legally, and release them back into the rivers. And I don't know if there's ever been, or if there ever was a study done on the mortality rate or how they'd ever do it. But I think they wonder about the decline in our salmon stocks. I think somebody seriously got to look at the system that they're using.
Well, I mean, the mortality rate depends on who you ask. Pretty basically, for folks who are completely opposed to hook and release and or catch and release, they say that the mortality rate is extremely high. For those who are in support of, they use a different calculation. So, and of course, there are some moving targets here, and people understand, the most serious issue is, of course, water temperature, but we talk about how long you play the fish, how long it's out of the water for the photo opportunity. But the issue regarding water temperature is going to be the be-all and end-all, from my understanding of the subject, because like last year, if the optimum temperature is around 18 degrees, and we had rivers that were hitting 27 degrees. If you catch and release a salmon in 27 degree water, the likelihood of that salmon dying is extremely high. And that's what the science says anyway. So I don't know where we go from here, but to answer your basic question about mortality rate, I don't have no idea, because it depends on who you ask, once again.
No, that's right. And the funny thing about it is that when the river temperatures rise, the only fishing that they allow is hook and release. So they're not really, to me, they're not really concerned about the mortality rate. It's funny. Like I said, last year when the river temperatures got up to 21, 22 degrees, oh no, we're shutting down. You're not allowed to keep no salmon, but you can hook and release. And on top of that, it's a whole. I guess they got their. I mean, I know that they're short with river wardens and whatever the case may be, but an avid fisherman who's got a full day to go salmon fishing hits the river, bright and early in the morning. Fishing's good. I think it's 3 salmon, if I'm not mistaken, that they're legally allowed to hook and release. But who's going to go home after hooking 3 salmon? And how do they enforce that? They come down to me, and I've got a salmon there that's a centimeter too long, or I've got a wrong date on the tag, or I've got a barb left on my fly, or some small thing like that. I can lose my truck, my rod, thousands of dollars of stuff just for a centimeter long. But if you're down there and you hook your salmon and let them go, how do they know? They come down and ask me, oh no, there's no salmon, and that's all they know. That's all the proof they got, right?
Yeah, it's the honor system, which is not great. The whole concept of river guardians, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because the poachers know exactly when the river guardians are going to be on the rivers. Now, of course, they are not members of the provincial government enforcement team. They're a private company hired by the federal government. Last year, the contract was for about $5 million. And the problem there is there's not enough of them. They're in charge of too many rivers, traveling too far a distance. And in addition to that, they're off the river before the season is actually over. So it's a deeply flawed approach.
Yeah, exactly. And the sin of it is, like I said, I'm allowed, and I give the benefit of the doubt. So if we say a 1% mortality rate, you take all the salmon rivers in Newfoundland that's got hundreds of salmon fishermen on them, catching 1 salmon a day each. At 1%, if 1,000 salmon is released a day, that's still 10 salmon a day that dies, goes back out the river. I'm allowed 2 in a season to bring home and feed my family. It don't make sense to me, right? If I'm going to catch the salmon and bring it home and eat it, why shouldn't I be allowed to catch, what I require for, say, a year, and then I'm done with it anyways. And these guys are down there day after day after day, just hooking and letting salmon go, and no regard to the fact, well, this one might die or that one might die. It's just, I don't know, it blows my mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I would like to think that there's a sizable percentage of anglers that are conscious of what they're doing. Sport fishing is part of it. I understand why people want to be on the rivers, but if you're on a good river, on a good pool, you can fill your tags in a heartbeat. So, yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I've seen it within the first, hour or 2 in the morning where, 2 tags filled. Okay, I'm done. Like, I'm done for the season, right? Meanwhile, somebody else, my neighbor, or if anybody down the street who does this hook and release, I mean, they're doing this all year long, right? From the time it opens till it closes, and it frustrates me, to say the least.
I can hear it in your voice, and fair enough. It would be helpful if there were some real firm guidelines. Like when you said that the river temperature hit 21, all of a sudden all the allowable activity was catch release. Well, we know the higher the water temperature gets, then the worse the mortality rate becomes. So it's sort of counterintuitive, no matter how you slice it.
Exactly. And how do they know? I mean, my big question is, how do they know what the mortality rate is? You know, how do scientists judge? I've seen it myself where salmon drifting out the river because of hook and release, and how do they know, or how do they decide what the mortality rate is?
It's a good question, and I have no earthly idea. You know, some of it might be so-called guesswork and or some controlled study of, but how they come up with a firm number, that I really have no earthly idea, which is why I think we hear so many different numbers being used by different groups and individuals for exactly that reason.
Exactly. You know, and it's not like every fisherman that's on the river has done a course on the proper way to handle salmon and make sure that it's, you know, everything is good before they let it go. And, you know, so it's something I think that if the government is really worried about our salmon stocks, I think it's something that somebody has seriously got to address. The 2 salmon that I'm going to catch and bring home to feed my family, I don't think is going to attribute much to a decline in the salmon stocks. It's the fellows that's day after day after day down there hooking them and letting them go, that, in my personal beliefs anyways, is what's destroying the rivers.
It's certainly part of it, and regardless of what number of people are using for mortality, the sport fishing is what it is. I appreciate making time for the show, Jason. Thanks for the call. Good luck on the river.
All right, thanks for calling. Take my call, Patty. Have a good day.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
And, you know, some of it, even if you have your tags to fill, there's obviously going to be the want for some anglers to release a couple of smaller fish that they bring in. And I get that concept too, but it's an interesting conversation. But, you know, we're told, and I think this stands to reason, is the concept of the higher water temperatures. It's not going to be the exception. It's likely going to be the rule. I mean, that's been the trend. And when the water gets as hot as that, catch and release, and I'm no expert or scientist, and nor have I got a lot of experience on the river, but if you read enough about it, when we get outside that sweet spot of 18, 19, then it becomes a bigger issue. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, tons of time to speak with you on a topic of your choosing. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to the recreation programmer in the town of Carbonear. That's Amanda Brady. Good morning, Amanda. You're on the air.
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Happy to have you on the program. So tell us what's going on with the participation in Carbonear.
Oh, it's really exciting, actually. So participation, for those who don't actually know what it is, it's a Canadian initiative for the entire month of June to help communities become active and connect with others in like a friendly competition to try and win $100,000 for the recreation department in the Winton communities. So the ways that you can do that, because I often get the question, like, how can I help? There's 2 ways. One is to pledge as an individual. So you go on to participaction.com, and you're going to pledge and say, yes, I'm going to be active for the month of June. And the other way that you can do it is to participate through programs, events, activities that different organizations and the towns are offering to provide, of course, an inclusive program that people can participate in. And when they participate, they then become a number, I guess, that will entitle us to earn points. So right now in the town of Carbonear, I just have an entire calendar for the entire month of June. Something is happening every single day. If you participate in one of those activities, you will gain us points to help us try and win that $100,000. So right now, the town of Carbonear is actually number 1 in all of Newfoundland. So I'm so proud of everyone that's been up and moving and being active. And the best way to follow us is actually to go on Facebook and just follow our Facebook page. Put in the town of Carbonear, or even put in Carbonear Swimming Pool and Recreation Complex, and all the information will be posted there as to how you can help this town, and of course probably even your own town, wherever you're located, to participate and become active.
So did you say there's a list of activities that qualify?
Oh, definitely. So right now, every organization or the town needs to come up with a program, an activity, or an event. So any of these things that we offer, you can participate in, and that will help us towards winning the $100,000.
$100,000 can go a long way in the town of Carbonear.
Oh, you have no idea.
What would some of the hopes be? What's on the top of the to-do list?
So for the town of Carbonear, I think the biggest ones are accessible playgrounds, playground improvements, a possible splash pad, more programming, more community events, upgrades to indoor and outdoor facilities. Like, these are just a few of the things that I would love to see, and of course the town would love to see improvements on. And sometimes you do need a financial support in order to achieve some of this stuff. So of course, so anybody that participates, it's always going to be it's always a win-win for everyone. Everyone is a winner because you're out, you're getting active, and you're just making yourself better.
And so this is all honor system. I say I'm participating, I tick off an activity that I'm going to take on that day, and you just get the points automatically.
Well, the organization has to put that information in. So you can go ahead and pledge as an individual and say, yes, I'm going to be active, but you have to participate in organization or the town's involvement. So just a small example, I have a tumbling tots that goes ahead Wednesday mornings. If you show up to my tumbling tots program, you would sign the piece of paper, how long we participated for. In my perspective, I would put down some things that we actually accomplished during that time, and then the participation committee would take that information and they would give us points based on the activity.
So how long does this run?
Only until June the 30th. So we've been doing this now since June the 1st, and there's only a little over a week left.
Do you have any idea how many people in the town have already taken part?
The town, I don't have the exact numbers with the town right now, but I do have, in Newfoundland, we've reached 37,000 participants. And in all of Canada, it's 655,000 participants. So people are really trying to get out, they're trying to get active, and they're trying to be a part of this program to help their communities try to win the money.
Well, fingers crossed that Carbonear stays in the lead, I suppose. How many other communities are actually participating across the island? Do you happen to know?
Everybody is entitled. Every Carbonear who has a different postal code is entitled to participate, and there's a lot in the running. So right now I believe that there's 20. You can go on to participaction.com, and when you actually search in who's in the lead, you can choose to look at who's in the lead for Canada, and right now, this very moment, it's Hay River, but you can switch it to Newfoundland. We are number one, but all the way to St. Anthony, Greens Pond, Gander, St. Mary's. You can go in and see the list. There's 20 of the top participants located here on that website. So you can go in and look and see where your community is. And if your community isn't there, maybe you need to go talk to the recreation programmer and say, let's get moving.
There's no good reason not to be involved in this program.
No, this is incredible. I think every community has an opportunity to, bring people together, and provide inclusive programming. It's time now that everybody has the ability to participate, and that's definitely my goal for this month, is that I do encompass everybody with all of my programming.
Well, good on you, Amanda, and good luck to the town of Carbonear and all the participating communities in this terrific program. Nice to have you on the show. Thanks for making time.
Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Amanda Brady, recreation programmer in the town of Carbonear. All right, let's keep rolling. Line number 2. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning, line number 2. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, am I number 2?
You are number 2.
Oh, good morning, Paddy.
Morning.
Thanks for calling and taking my call.
No problem.
I just want to. I don't know that guy who was calling in about the salmon, but I want to add to what he was saying, because he made so much common sense. It's really real. I mean, I was a salmon fisher at one point in time. Back then, I think you could catch 3 or 4 a day. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
This hook and release, Paddy, that's the most detrimental part of all this, because if you hook and release, anybody who fish salmon know that by the time that you land a salmon, he's finished. He's not getting anywhere after you take the hook out of him. So really, it's only just feeding the galls. That's all you're doing.
And I think he asked, his name is Jason, asked a really important question. how are we even evaluating the issue regarding hook and release or catch and release? I mean, is it really guessing, or are there controlled reports or studies done on rivers? Like, I don't even know how they come up with the numbers.
Now, Patty, I think it's the craziest rule that they could ever come up with. Like I say, I mean, it's a destruction to the salmon stocks. That's what it is.
And if you add to the fact that all the rivers that get counted, I think there's some 17 in the province that get counted, salmon returns are way down, and some rivers much worse than others. Say, for instance, Conn River is in terrible shape, and there's a bunch of things that we can't control, certainly not in the short term, whether it be sea ice or phytoplankton or water temperatures, but we can't control how anglers are allowed to operate.
See, if the stocks are down in the rivers, I mean that's obvious enough that it's a crazy rule they got about hooking the salmon. You know, catch the one salmon or two salmon that you can catch, and then have a field day catching and releasing. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And so I don't know if there's going to be much in the way of changes. Another point that Jason made, which I also found quite interesting, is when some of the rivers got quite warm, they shut down the ability to tag a salmon and bring it home, but they continued to allow people to catch and release. And we know, regardless of how experienced someone might be on the river, the water temperature is a really critical component in whether or not a fish is going to be able to survive, period.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, why, you know, if the water is so too warm to catch and keep, why would you be able to catch and release?
Yeah, I really don't know. And of course, the fish would be quite lethargic and just kind of bobbing up and down there. So I'm glad you brought your perspective to the show. Would you like to add anything else this morning? Yes,
sir. And in Marystown here, the bridge, one of the hang-ups on the bridge is because of the salmon stocks. I mean, if they narrowed in on each side of the river, you wouldn't need the bridge so long. But they can't do that because it would interrupt the salmon going up the river. That is too crazy. Salmon is going to go up anyway. They don't need much space to go up through a river.
No, absolutely not. They need a space big enough for a salmon.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Anyway, thanks for taking my call, Petty.
I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, the federal dental plan is in the queue, and also there's a new report out from an organization called Canadians for Nuclear Energy. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Chris. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, thanks.
Good.
So I'm today calling on behalf of a group called Canadians for Nuclear Energy, and we've released a new report that is titled Throwing Caution to the Wind, a report on the Canada-Germany Hydrogen Alliance. And you know, you've done a lot of really good coverage, so you know a lot of this won't be news to you necessarily, but it's a really good piece of public literature that's really meant to try and help educate people and explain how there's some pretty bad carbon accounting going on with the project.
So what are you using for a calculation regarding carbon counting here?
So one of the big problems that's sort of built into the IET's subsidy program comes around what's called basically the life cycle of the product. And so they stop counting the carbon that is required to interact with the ammonia once it's turned into ammonia. Then any shipping that happens, and then the use on the other end, which may be burning it with coal, maybe cracking it back to hydrogen using electricity that, you know, is also using coal. None of that is counted. And so the actual carbon intensity of this green hydrogen is actually, with our pretty kind of generous calculations, closer to the carbon intensity of what they call blue hydrogen, which is just regular hydrogen made from natural gas with carbon capture and sequestration.
Not doubting the work that's been done, but there does seem to be a lot of ifs associated with the downstream emissions that you're trying to calculate.
Well, as long as the boats are running on diesel, that's going to be a big leg of it. Now, there are talks of other forms of shipping happening, but even then, so there are, say, methanol ships. And so, they have a lower carbon emission, but then they also come with nitrous and sulfur emissions. So there's, a little bit of a molecular shell game going on with that. It's going to be a little while before we see carbon-free ocean freight. And then on the other end, we know that how carbon-intensive the German grid is, and it's basically the most carbon-intensive grid in Western Europe. They closed their nuclear and they kept their coal going, so most days it's fairly polluting economy relative to Europe.
Didn't I read that the Germans, it was the Germans or the French, just closed their last coal plant and never to be operational again? Is that something I read this morning?
Wouldn't have been the Germans, I don't imagine. The French, maybe. Yeah, I mean they're in spitting distance of that. Alberta is actually making a good push on it too. Now, Alberta energy prices are maybe not something that we want to be emulating here.
Nope.
But Alberta does have a lot of natural gas, and they've done coal to gas switching in a major way. And very likely they're going to be eventually layering carbon capture and sequestration on top of much of that natural gas. So when they do have marginal gas, they will be able to interact with the hydrogen economy, whatever emerges from it, in a much, much, much lower price point than green hydrogen.
You mentioned carbon capture or sequestration in Alberta, but the unfortunate fact of the matter is, on that front, is the largest carbon capture facility in the country is in Alberta, and they just closed. They had huge problems. They couldn't make the business model work. They were saying that they could achieve 90% carbon capture. They never made it to 60. So that's, I think, a lesson that can be learned for the rest of the country, because it's not all created equal. Of course, that was onshore versus some of the plans off BC and the plans off of our coast. But when they talk about carbon sequestration, they've got a problem there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm more or less pretty skeptical about carbon capture, other than what plants do and microbes and soil and plankton and all that. They capture carbon very, very effectively. The mechanical processes of doing it, I would think less so. And this is kind of one of the something that the report gets into, is that within this elaborate sort of attempt at net zero, we have a lot of moving parts. And, it's all trying to balance out the carbon economy. And with a lot of our solutions, we need to count poorly for them to look good. And so, there's $17 billion being spent in relation to hydrogen, and more of that will go to the East Coast because of this accounting system where the downstream just isn't included. And then we're not including at all the carbon that is lost from the wildlife destruction, because of course wetlands and forests are carbon sinks. But our industrial carbon policy does not include that on the ledger either.
Nuclear gets a bit of a strange rap, whether it be with 3 Mile Island and other disasters that are really front of mind for many folks. The fact of the matter is, it's proven to be really safe. Of course, things can go horribly wrong, no doubt about that, but nuclear has proven to be pretty safe. It's reliable, it's really efficient, and there are some 4 nuclear generating stations in the country at this moment in time, I'm pretty sure, generates somewhere between 13 and 15% of the country's electricity at this moment. Then there's agreements between Ontario and New Brunswick talking about some small nuclear to come on stream. And of course, when the concept was to store nuclear waste in Labrador, the place went up, and I get that, but that's proven to be safer than people realize too, I think.
Yeah, and I guess kind of the better, the nationwide picture is important, but it's really almost entirely an Ontario story. So 60% of their grid most days comes from nuclear power, and one of their units has started to do a capacity factor above 100%. And so one of the things we explore in this report is that even being somewhat generous, the wind farms are likely to have a capacity factor in the 30s. And so whatever the nameplate, if it's a gigawatt wind farm, realistically, they'll be outputting a third of that. And nuclear, the newest plant, Vogtle, their unit 3 is doing 99.7 in its second year of operation. We don't know what the unit 4 is doing. It's only been running a couple months now. But in terms of how secure your investment is with these projects, it's an incredibly high percentage point. They get turned on, and then they can last for 80 to 100 years, and they will get better. And like hydro, deserves a lot of clean energy respect. But we very well may be reaching the limit of all our accessible hydro. And then,
I think there's 2,225 megawatts just up the river.
That is still fairly stranded at the moment. And so there is a very big talk to have around transmission, and we have much money that needs to be spent on that just to get the value out of Muskrat Falls. So the additional transmission investment that would be needed for Gull Island is conspicuously absent from the conversation.
Yeah, but now Jennifer Williams, CEO at Hydro, says we're much further advanced on Gull than people realise. And when you talk transmission, Muskrat Falls is as much a transmission project as it is a generation project. And curiously, we're talking about wind and nuclear in the same sentence. And I'm not downplaying or not attempting to downplay the potential risks, because they're real and there's some historically notable disasters that have taken place. But again, in the big scheme of things, it has proven to be pretty safe. And using wind in the same sentence, one of the most famous nuclear disasters happened at wind scale, which is kind of curious. Chernobyl and Tokamura, 3 Mile Island, Fukushima. So things have gone sideways for sure. But anyway, I'll give you the final thoughts.
They have, but there are very few industries where we could list all of the disasters associated with them. Oil spills, chemical spills, all have a much higher death toll associated with them than nuclear does. And that's sort of a marvel of the modern age. Now, the report isn't really explicitly pro-nuclear. It is pro-better accounting of the hydrogen economy and our carbon economy. And, when you do that, that does lead many people to conclude that there's a big place for nuclear energy. But I think the more important question to ask is, what is the place of hydrogen in the decarbonized world, and how does it make sense when we're losing 50 to 80% of it and no one can afford to use the end product?
Yeah, and it gets further complicated where it's proximity to the end user, the customer. It'd be a different sounding conversation if this was all for domestic use versus the fact that it is being shipped across the ocean. And they're not even prepared for offloading at this moment of time in Rotterdam and or in Germany proper. I appreciate the time, Chris. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Patty. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's take the break on time. Daniel, you're next to talk about the federal dental plan. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. And big thanks to listener Judy, sent along a link. I was just zipping through a few headlines earlier, and I was talking about somewhere where they just shuttered their last coal plant, never to fire or burn another lump again. It wasn't France or Germany. It was Alberta. Thanks, Judy. Let's say, Daniel, you hang tough. I'm going to line number 6 first, taking more to the Director of Language Services at the Association for New Canadians. That's Leo Etchegary. Good morning, Leo. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
Happy to do it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So I called today to talk about our new exhibit at the City Hall. And so basically we're celebrating World Refugee Day. And we have an exhibit. It's a photograph exhibit. There are approximately, we started with 130 photographs, and we're down to about 60 are displayed. And while we asked each of our clients to give us a photograph of something important to them, to their home country, what do we want to know about their culture. So we took all the photographs in, and basically there's 5 themes. There's people and places with a focus on family, there's food, there's celebrations, there's clothing and artifacts. And I think it's a great exhibit, and it's a reminder that everyone has a unique story to tell, and that I think by looking at the pictures at this exhibit, people will gain a greater understanding of the newcomers to our city.
Give us a couple of examples where you think there's some misunderstanding of some of the backstory. You know, people just take the immigration type stories at the high levels, right? You know, we're 100,000 feet above sea level, and don't think about where you came from, what you're running from, what your hopes and aspirations are as a newcomer to the country. So give us a couple of examples where you think there's, a strange backstory or an interesting backstory. I know some Syrians in my neighborhood, and people say, that they came from Syria. But the fact of the matter is, they were in a refugee camp for 3 years before they got here. Mm-hmm. So help us understand a couple of interesting tidbits.
Well, understand that when people come, and especially newcomers, and they want to come to school, whether they're adults coming to our language school here, which is what we do, or they come to grade school and go into grade 3 at East Point Elementary or Vanier or wherever, understand that if you have a child coming in who has never been in school, who has never held a pencil, you got to start from that point of view first and help them get used to sitting down at a desk in a formal education environment. And what's amazing, and especially we've got adults here and there's young kids who come into school, they pick up English as a young child so quickly compared to their parents, because they're always speaking English in the school system. In fact, it's quite easy to find some of the kids helping their parents interpret for themselves. So that's one thing that really is clear to me. But if you go down to City Hall, and that exhibit is open until July 3rd, I think if you looked at the pictures, you would notice that they're celebrating family and people and food. They're not different than we are. They're different. They look different. They have different types of food. Lots of spicy food, no doubt about it, in many cultures. But they're, what sets them different is what makes them very similar to what we are. And we celebrate family and friends and celebrations and weddings, and our clothing is unique. So I think, to me, the more I know that I meet newcomers, it reminds us what's important, what we have that's important to us as well. I think that's really important to say.
Fair enough, Leo. I appreciate you taking time for the show. And the issue with picking up the language, it truly is remarkable, especially when you talk about the children and their ability to pick it up. When the Syrians arrived in my neighborhood, and there was a pretty large family, and they spoke very little to no English. And before long, the children were out playing in the park or playing out on the street. The ability for them to communicate with me just happened, it felt like overnight.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a great, and they're so their brains are so able to pick up a new language at a younger age. It's much harder as an adult, for sure.
And add to it, as we're told, English is one of the most difficult languages in the world to learn.
it's unique, and many of our words are unique to them. It's much more unstructured compared to some of the other languages, for sure.
No question. Leo, appreciate the time. Good luck with the exhibit.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye. Leo Etchegaray is Director of Language Services at the ANC, the Association for New Canadians. Let's keep rolling. Line number 3. Daniel, you're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly. Hope you're well.
I'm doing fine. Thanks. How about you?
Good. Listen, I was calling about the Canadian dental plan.
Yep. Okay.
I understood that they were going to be sending the letters out when your age group was available.
No, you have to apply.
Oh, I have to apply, do I?
Yep.
Oh, it just says here, letters will be mailed to seniors when applications open for their age group.
Well, it might be telling you that your age group portal is now open, but you still do have to apply yourself. Because there's a bunch of eligibility criteria that not everybody who's 70 would satisfy.
I see, okay. Okay, so I have to apply then?
Yep. Do you use the internet, Daniel?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so let me see if I can find you a contact number for this program. And so just while I'm trying to find it, there's a couple of obvious issues that people need to know. So is first off in the eligibility world, is you have to have a net family income of $90,000 or less. If you have a net family income of $70,000 or less, there won't be any co-pays. Advice directly from the Dental Association here, once you get approved, Daniel, is also just to call the administrative staff at whatever dental clinic you go to and ask them exactly what you're getting done and what's going to be required out of pocket. So not everything is 100% covered, which is something that I think people have been confused by. All right, I have a telephone number for you to call and get the information.
Okay.
So it is 1-833 537 43 42.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, I got it. Okay, I thought maybe maybe your listeners didn't know about that, but I just called to let you know anyway.
Yeah, well, I appreciate making time for the show. And, of course, the portals, by the end of this year, I think all that will be eligible, which we're told some 9 million Canadians, will be covered by this Canadian Dental Care Plan. And, of course, there's still some confusion here. And I don't know if this is important to you, but there's a certain percentage of the dentists and hygienists and denturists across the country have signed up. Many are standing back to wait and see how it works for their fellow dentists, regarding the amount of paperwork and how they're getting paid. But on the 8th of July, even if your dentist is not enrolled in the plan directly, they will have the ability to direct bill Sun Life, which is the company that's navigating this particular plan. There is a portal available through Sun Life as well to see whether or not your dentist has enrolled at this moment in time. There's also going to be a staggered rollout of what procedures get covered when, because not everything is covered at this moment in time, especially for those dentists that are not signed up. But you give that number a call and get the ball rolling. You'll eventually get a number or a case number, or whatever the right word is, from Sun Life directly that you can provide to your dentist.
Okay, Mr. Daly, thanks for the information.
Appreciate your time. Thanks, Daniel.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye-bye. It's like a lot of the big plans, right? Including the pharmacare plan, which is not fully in place at this moment in time. When there was pressures brought to bear in the supply and confidence agreement between the NDP and the Liberals, these big swings, like those two plans in particular, pharmacare and dental care, they are the two biggest moves in healthcare delivery in the country in decades. And still, all kinds of strange looming questions that weren't addressed got rolled out. It had price tags attached, but still confusion, even inside the world of, if you're a dentist. They told us quite clearly it was the 11th hour before they were even brought into the fold. You would think they'd be a pretty important component of a national dental care plan, right? Because you're not getting it from your tailor, you're getting it from your dentist. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning, Barbara. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hi. Is that you, Patty?
That's me.
Oh, I'm calling about home care.
Okay.
Now, this is my first time calling you, and I'm trying to be right. I'm on home care for 17 months past, and 7 days a week. I have a home care worker, one of the best in Newfoundland, and But when she's not here due to other circumstances, if she's got other reasons she can't be here, I'm left alone. There's no second person. So today she's on holidays from yesterday until the 24th of this month, and I'm here alone. I am not safe to be alone, but I am alone. Therefore, I'm saying that there's got to be some changes in the home care program so that people, not only me, many others like me, might be left on their own. Patty, it's time for the home care program to get to be a wonderful program, and I think they need training. The younger people that are out there in the workforce, maybe, they need training before they just come into your home and tend on the person. I am concerned. I have been concerned for many years, and I know what I'm talking about. I had my husband on home care for 2.5 years, and we had more than a half a dozen workers. It needs to be revamped, I call it, right from the beginning of the program to the end. I just wanted to tell you I'm not complaining about any agency. I'm not complaining about the program, only it needs to be readdressed.
Of course it does, Barbara. There's got to be some responsibility on behalf of the agency, too, knowing that they've offered vacation time to one of their workers, but that worker's clients still need the care.
Yes. Well, as I see it, and as I've experienced it, there's no workers available. That's why I'm here alone. And all I can do is get a cup of tea and a slice of toast or a biscuit or something. I can't cook. I want to say that the workers, there's no workers, really. That's what I'm told from the agencies. And those people need training, they need better pay, and they need to be treated as almost the same, I think I could say the same, as the nurses or the LPNs. They have a very important job when they come into your home and they take over and do whatever work has to be done according to what they're allowed to do. I agree with home care, but it needs to be looked at.
Barbara, when did you say your home care worker was coming back from vacation?
Well, she was off yesterday. Well, she left here on Saturday, but that was the weekend. I have no workers on Saturday or Sunday because there's no one to come in. She comes in one Saturday morning, twice a month, and that's all. So she started her holidays on last weekend, or the 17th, if you want to be exact, and she will be back on the 24th. But I'm here day and night. Once I go to bed, that's fine. But all day long, there's nobody here with me. I can't send out to the store for anything. I can't go out of my apartment.
So what are you going to do?
Pardon me?
What are you going to do this week then to keep yourself fed? I mean, is there someone in the community that we can reach out to for you and see if we can't get you some help while your worker's away?
No, I don't know I really don't know what you can do, but the program is where it's got to be changed. And I don't know who's going to change it or whatever. But my husband is dead now. He passed away 6 years ago, and I got rid of my house. It was too large for me, and now I'm in an apartment. I built this building, not with labor. Wasn't the carpenter, but I did everything to get this building called Golden Years Manor for Arnold's Cove. Not for myself. I never thought I'd be here, but I built it for the community. And after that, I built another one. I had the license to build it from the health department, and that's the personal care home that occupies 30 people. This one that I live in now has 20 apartments, but there's only 9 people here, and there's 11 apartments without occupancy. They're available, but they're not filled. I operated this for 30 years, and from the day it was opened until I gave it up. So, I need some care, a little bit more than I have. Someone to come in when my home care worker is not here. That's what I need.
It sure sounds like it. So if someone in the community was willing to even just pop by and bring you some food or something along those lines, is that something that you would be welcome, or what would you like to see happen?
I've been in this apartment 6 years after my husband died.
Okay.
And there hasn't been one person come to visit me, but I put this building here. I didn't have the money to do it or anything like that, but I looked after every item for 30 years, and there's people in this building don't come handy. I'm not saying they're bad people. They're good people, but it's just the way of life. And I've seen everything in my experience as a teacher. I was teaching for 30 years. Let me tell you, Patty, I started when I had my 16th birthday in Prince of Wales College in the summer to do teacher training, and I never stopped. I did all of that for 30 years, and then I gave it up, and then I acted as a volunteer for seniors, and I worked here at this building that I'm living in now. I worked here free. I was not paid 1 cent for my services. I didn't expect it. I didn't ask for it. But I worked here day and night. And if somebody fell out of bed, someone else heard a noise and they called me. And I would come over, both my husband when he was with me. I'm telling you, I've got a story to tell to the province. I haven't seen anyone building seniors' homes for the seniors. But I built 2 in Arnold's Cove, and I built a smaller one just to recreation. Patty, life is a story.
It is, and yours is fascinating. Barbara,
I know.
If someone calls us or sends me an email and says that they'd like to do something to help you out throughout the course of this week, do you want me to say yes to them? Do you want me to have them call you? Because I don't want to put you on the spot here, but if someone offers to be of some support this week, is that something that you're okay with?
Yes, I'll take support. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
I'll take support, and I really appreciate your program. I listen to it a lot, but somehow or other, in the past, I didn't feel that I really wanted to go public about anything in my life. But I don't mind it now. I'm at the age, I'm 88, and I'm still very active in mind, but I am crippled. I was involved in accidents and falls, and therefore that's why I can't get out, I can't get around very well. My sons help me when they can. They're not always available, and they can't be always available. But with the home care, if I had someone in here this week now, my home care worker is on holiday. That's okay. I'll accept another person. Although I have to be very careful who I accept too.
Of course. Absolutely, which is why sometimes I'm not really sure what to do because I don't want to put anybody in harm's way. So if a good-hearted, well-intentioned, reasonable person who is in and around Arnold's Cove would like to be of some assistance, just get in contact with us and we'll put you in contact with Barbara. And please be very mindful of we need this to be a healthy, safe relationship. So someone who's got all the right intentions, if you can help, please do. Barbara?
Well, I know Arnold's Cove very well. I was here ever since 1968, and that's when my little girl, 6.5, was killed in a car accident, and I had no other children at that time, but I did have 3 sons after. Now, I know Arnold's Cove very, very well.
And let's hope someone who maybe knows of the things that you've done and things you've achieved and the supports you've offered the community for all these years, it's time to give back. So I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that someone reaches out to me ASAP. And when they do, we'll try to do our level best to ensure that they're the right person that can help. And I wish you well, Barbara. And let me know if any of this hopeful support comes to pass. Will you please?
I will let you know anything that has been done by anyone to help me at this time.
I appreciate it.
Another thing,
okay.
I'm running out of support. The reason is because I'm after paying so much for home care in the past years that my money is getting low. And the food is getting so expensive. What I could buy for a month on my own when I was well would be between 100 and maybe 160. Now it's 200 and over sometimes, and I can't get any special foods. It's the basics.
Barbara, apparently someone just called David Williams, who we've already spoken with. He wants me to put you on hold. I think he has some news for you.
Who is that?
David, the gentleman that you spoke to when you called the show.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that, and you let me know how this works out, okay?
Now, Patty, thanks a million.
My pleasure. Good luck, and take good care of yourself.
Try to.
Okay, Barbara, there you go. David, she is on hold for you. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Well, given the fact we're just up against the news here, we'll probably wait to take the caller so we're in the queue. And once again, if you're someone who can indeed be of some support to Barbara, just let us know. We'll try to connect you and see if we can do this properly. And, you know, there was a caller in the queue. I'm not sure if she's going to come back. Olive talked about PCAs, personal care attendants. So when we talk about home care workers, Barbara mentioned the concept of training several times, an important point. Because we have to understand what level of training is afforded to home care workers, whether it be in the world of personal care and or first aid and those types of things. Now remember, there was a lady who called the show, this is months ago now, but someone has written me an email and said it's mandatory for personal care attendants to have first aid, but it wasn't the case in this one lady's circumstance. She went to the care home to find that her mother had died as a result of a heart attack, and the home care worker, the social worker that was being the point of contact, said that we wonder what would have happened had the staff had the appropriate first aid training in place. So I'm not sure if that was the staff in its totality and or was the personal care attendants themselves, but just training for the appropriate level of care to be offered and for the basics of first aid to be offered is important. If you're hired off the street, that's one thing, but if you go through, for instance, the personal care program at College of the North Atlantic, first aid is mandatory as part of the diploma or the certificate of completion of that program. Let's take a break. When we come back, the dental plan, ATMs, an issue with parking, and whatever you want to talk about right after this. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Gail, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi there.
I'm calling today about a ticket that I got on Water Street back in February. I have to pay by phone on my phone, and I enter my license plate, my car, and ran into Outfitters, dropped something off, came back out, and I had a ticket. And I said, what the heck? I looked at the numbers. Looked at my phone, same numbers. And when I look closer, we have two rigs. Both are blue. I picked the wrong rig, but I legitimately paid. It was an error. So I contacted the traffic court, did all the steps, sent a ticket in. I even took a picture of where I parked, the store, everything. And that was February. I heard back in April, the 1st I heard back. We will send a registered letter. And I got an email before that, you will get a registered letter. Then I got this, you're getting a registered letter. I don't have anything. I'm after emailing twice this past in May. And then this month I had to pay the ticket because I had to license my utility trailer. So I had to pay the ticket. And I emailed the ladies again, and I said, I'm frustrated. What do I do to contest a ticket in St. John's? And nobody has gotten back to me. Nobody. Are they working from home? They should be quicker. You can't get an answer down there. You go right to, please email, please leave a message. Nobody calls you back. Nobody. I don't know why. And it's not fair. I legitimately paid, and it was an accident. Whether it was, the judge had to say, look, it's your fault. That's okay. I can accept that. But at least somebody have the courtesy to phone me back.
So, did you fill out the challenge on the back of the ticket?
Yes, I did, and I had to submit that, scan that, submit that, and the ticket number, my license, and all of that, which she had anyway. And that's what 2 people came back to me in the same department. You'll get a registered letter. Not one single person has reached out to me since May, and then I had to pay the ticket. I don't know. I just don't understand how come I can't reach nobody by person. Why can't somebody call me back or email me back?
Sure. I mean, the silence is deafening and it's frustrating. And now that you've already paid the ticket, I wonder what that's going to mean for the possibility to see the challenge taken on. So I don't know if there's rebates in the equation here. So when you call the city, you just call 311, do you?
Yeah, well, no, the protocol is you go online if you want to contest a ticket, and you have to scan everything and submit it in. So, of course, I called because the guy that gave me the ticket, it's not his fault, even though, I'm not buying him flowers or anything, but I'm just frustrated that I did everything right, and to give you all the steps online, what you got to do, and fill out the form, attach everything. I had 3 attachments, the picture of where I parked, and a scan of the ticket. And nobody has reached out to me. And I actually, when my last email, this is exactly what I said, as I just said. I'm very frustrated. What have I got to do to contest this ticket in St. John's? And not one single reply. And I sent it twice.
Yeah, because the concept of the registered mail, when you put in a challenge, you're supposed to get a trial date.
Yes, and she said you will get a registered mail letter giving you your date. Nothing. And no reply. Nothing.
I'm not sure what to say on that front because this is a fairly fundamental process.
Yeah, I don't it's so easy to it's ABC, fill this out, send it in. But where is everybody as well? I'd like to know. Are they short-handed down there? Are they? I don't know. I can't explain why nobody calls me back or emails me back. I don't get it.
I don't get it either, because the turnaround time on this is supposed to be pretty quick.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm out $50 now because I had to pay. I had to ship my trailer licensed, and I needed that for the summer.
Yeah, I don't know where to direct you if you're not getting any attention. Maybe, just maybe, you can maybe call your own counsellor, one of the at-large counsellors, see if they can do some work on your behalf.
Okay. Jamie Corab's the man. I'll call him.
Yeah, just see if you can get him cracking at this, because, you know, if there was just a simple error, and it sounds like exactly that, and you can prove by the pictures and the timestamp on the ticket that, and of course with the amount that you paid for the parking, this should go away. But unless someone gets back to you, it's all just going to be up in the air. So give Corab a call and get him going.
Thank you so much for listening.
Good luck, Gail.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 1. Ron, you're on the air.
Yes, Paddy, first thing I'd like to say is just it's good on you guys at VOCM, man. The grassroots help you're giving the community is just so helpful on so many levels, and the benefits you give to your listeners is just, you know, fantastic, immeasurable.
I sure hope Barbara gets a little bit of help here. I'll follow up.
And that's really what I'm talking about here today, like what that previous caller there with Barbara, but not only that call, but just it's so consistent over the years. It's a fantastic job you guys do there. But dental care plan, that's what I found out about. Follow up on Daniel's call. My experience with that is I was like Daniel. I was waiting for the letter. I realized it wasn't coming. Went online seeing, okay, well, I got to apply for it, so I applied. Let me see. I just wrote the dates down while I was waiting there. I applied on May 21st. I was eligible in May. I received a letter dated May 23rd, so that from my online application to when the letter was processed is only a couple of days. That's great. Got the letter probably late May sometime, whatever, in the mail, whatever. So anyway, I was like the pain in my tooth after, right? So it says I'm covered 100% and everything, so it's not bad. I'll be able to go. My dentist gets something paid for here and everything, right? So the client number is on the letter. So I call my dentist office and whatnot and everything. They say, well, you got to have your card. There's a card comes with it, right? So I said, well, I don't have the card. So they said, well, if you don't have the card, we can't do anything for you. So I phoned Sun Life. They gave me the number from Sun Life, and I wasn't in their system as of June 13th. That's probably like about 2 or 3 weeks past there. It does say on the letter it could take up to 3 months to receive the information package, just to let people know that's sort of waiting, because I delayed my cleaning and exam and everything for the card, like kind of thing. And anyway, this pain I had in my tooth, I went to the dentist, and he said, you need a root canal, you need whatever we got to do here, is, you know, you're going to be out about $1,500 or whatever. And he said, unfortunately, he said, your pain is in your wisdom tooth. It's the only tooth in your head that's not covered by the dental program. So just wanted to let people know that part of the information here.
And it's helpful. And like even the Dental Association told us, I can't remember the president's name off the top of my head here, but he was quite clear. To know exactly what you're getting yourself into, call the administrative staff at the dental clinic and explain. Like in this case, of course, you wouldn't have been able to find out until you sat in the chair and they evaluated the pain was emanating from your wisdom tooth. But make sure you know what you're doing, because some people erroneously have gone to the dentist thinking that 100% of the coverage was in place just to find out that it's not. So there's still a lot of confusion in this. I was going to call it foolish, a very helpful dental plan, and it's working for some, but there's still a lot yet to be fully understood. And again, if your dentist is not enrolled in the plan formally, by the 8th of July, they will be able to take you and have the coverage associated with the Canada National Dental Care Plan, and it'll be just direct billing to Sun Life. And some people were even confused, and they thought, when they heard that there was going to be a letter coming out in the mail, they kind of thought, well, that means I'm enrolled in the plan. But that's not the case. You have to apply, whether it be via phone or online. And it's not a very tricky process. And the turnaround time has varied between Sun Life and individual Canadians. But yes, you have to apply. You're not automatically covered simply because you're of the age that is currently being accepted.
Yes, I fell into that trap at the beginning kind of thing, because it did say letter coming kind of thing, right? So, but I found out after a few weeks and I looked it up. And one last footnote, Patty, is that my letter says 100% coverage, but when I was in the dentist office, they said even though your letter says 100% coverage, the federal plan guideline numbers, for whatever way the right way to say it. The federal guideline numbers for the procedure is not the same as provincial guideline numbers, and you may have to pay, even though he says 100%, you might have to pay the extra, whatever, between the two different guidelines.
Yeah, that's right. So if you earn less than $90,000 net family income, then you can be covered, but there will be co-pays, quite possibly. If you earn less than $70,000, apparently there's going to be no co-pays. So that's another distinction. And the next portal that is scheduled to open for eligibility is on the 27th of this month, so just over a week. That'll be open to children under 18, people between 18 and 64 with a valid disability tax credit. And I believe the portal now includes Canadians 70 years of age and older, or no, maybe it's 65 to 70. I appreciate the time, Ron. Thanks for doing it.
Paddy, one last thing just to clarify something. Say my root canal, if it costs $1,500 in Newfoundland, the federal guideline might say it costs $1,300. My dentist charged $1,500. I have to pay the $200.
Yeah,
it's different that way, kind of thing too, right? Not only just on your income.
The dentists are on a pay schedule or a charging schedule, and it's a level across the board.
Yes, in Newfoundland.
Yeah, in Newfoundland.
But it doesn't match up to the federal one. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So, it's not so much the income only. It's also another factor as well.
Factor needs to be included. I appreciate the information and the time, Ron.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye-bye. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 2. Mary, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, I'm too upset to be nervous, to be honest with you. I was at a gas station in Fall River Plaza in Ontario Road, and this is the third time. I'm going to say within the past year, but I'm thinking more within the past, 6 to 8 months, that this has happened to me. I used their ATM machine. I asked for a certain amount of money. I could hear it getting stuck. And I said, oh no, when I took it out, it gave me $40 less than what it showed. And the ticket came out and said it gave me the full amount. And I go back to the machine. One of the 20s is there. I can put my hand up and grab one of the 20s. The other one is not there. The first time it happened, I left my name. There was no manager. They wouldn't give me a number of anybody. I left my name, my number. I called there 3 or 4 different times. I know it's only $20, but and I let that go. So I called her 3 or 4 times. They said he's in only a certain time of day. I went there the times of the day that he was in, and there was nothing. And nothing left there for me. And he apparently, according to the staff, he opens up the machine at the end of shift. So it happened to me again. I let that one go. Months later, it happened to me again. I said, is this machine working? They said, yes, no problems with it. Happened to me again. Same thing. It shorted me $40. It gave me back one of the 20s. So my bank account is showing that it's still shorting me $20 because when I reach up, I can grab one of the 20s. Same thing. And I was there, I'd say maybe, weeks or a month after that or whatever, and there was a guy there. It happened to him. He flipped out. He just went out of his mind because he said, somebody has got to give me, and we've been calling the numbers on the ATM machine and can't get anywhere with it. Can't even get to leave a message there or anything on the 1-800 number there. So anyway, I left it. I went in there today. I said, oh, well. And I've done it many times because I go there to get my gas and stuff, so it's convenient for me. And the charge is very low. They only charge $1.50 on the machine to use, which is better than anywhere else. So I went in there today. I did the very same thing again, and you can hear it getting stuck. I'm like, okay, this is going to be short $40. And I said to the guy, and the first couple of times, there was a really nice guy. He's from out the country somewhere on the counter. He watched me, and I said to him, watch what I'm taking out and let me count it in front of you. Put down the thing. This time today, there was a guy filling up the water cooler, a big tall guy who was coming back and forth, and I kept saying to him, I said, is there a manager or somebody here? I said that I could speak to. No manager. I said, well, who is in charge? And he said, the cashiers are in charge. I said, can you give me the number of the manager? He said, no, you can leave your name and your number. I said, it's not going to be any good. They're not going to call me back. And I know of 2 other people that's happened to in that store. Very same thing. My question is, what is happening to these $20 bills?
Ended up in someone's pocket, obviously.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I always count my money at the ATM, and of course, I'm hesitant to use the privately owned machines because you're right, there's no accountability on the other end. Versus, like, if I go to the Royal Bank and I ask for $100 and it gives me $80, I just simply walk right in there and they can evaluate it very quickly, and I'll be given the money. As opposed to these privately owned machines, and I don't like paying an additional fee. I know I pay a bank fee with Royal Bank, but yeah, it's a sin that it's happening to you, and there's a reason why they're not going to call you back. They don't want to have to deal with you.
No, and the guy wouldn't on the cash wouldn't even give me. He gave me the manager's name. He said he said he could be in any. He owns 4 or 5 other stores. He said he could be in any of them. So, like, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's probably happening in the same in the 4 or 5 other stores as well. But I don't know because I haven't dealt with any of the other places. And I said, can you give me his phone number? No, we can't give out his phone number. Isn't that illegal? Like, isn't that, like, aren't they required to give you a manager's phone number for customer service if there's a problem in the store?
Well, I don't know about the legality of it all, but certainly it's terrible customer service, no matter how you slice it.
Well, ethically, I would think they would have to give the store owner's name. I mean, what about I went in there and I robbed something at $20 worth of something. I can guarantee you it wouldn't be too long before the police would be in there looking for me, or investigating. Oh, if I said I didn't take it, well, what happened to it, or that type of thing, right? So I think that myself and that other gentleman and the other 2 people that I know that this happened to. Now, I didn't know the name of the other gentleman. He just stormed out of there and went over to his bank. And, I feel there's something needs to be done. I said, if that machine is not working, it should not be here. If this is causing this to happen all the time, they should not be allowed to have it. And all this many times. I mean, I'm only one person, and I know of 6 occasions that this has happened where people have been ripped off $20, including myself.
Yeah,
so, I don't know. It just, I would like to know if it happened to anybody else in any store, and if there's any accountability or what they've done to prevent these people from being able to open up their machine at the end of the day. That $20 is obviously stuck in there. My fingers can't reach up to get it. It can reach up to get one, but the other one won't come down.
Yeah, I suppose the only piece beyond someone getting back to you, which of course I have no control over, but I would suggest if it was me, I'd never use that machine again.
No, and I would keep saying, and it would be months probably, and I'd say, is this working now? And, I'd be thinking, okay, well, he said, oh, yeah, no trouble with it or whatever. I didn't even think to ask today if it was working. Now, mind you, he probably would have said, yes, there's no trouble with it anyway. And I did it out of convenience because I got my gas there, and I was like, oh, my goodness. And you get your $1.50 coupon out of the machine, so you can use that towards your gas then. So the machine is really not charging you anything.
Oh, I didn't know that was one of the features. Okay.
Yeah. That was one good thing about it. But, I mean, you're still out, $18.50 when you look at it that way. So, for the sake of getting that $1.50 coupon. But for the most part, it always worked. It's 3 times now in 8 months to a year. I would say about 8 months that it's happened to me. And the other people I've known it happened to, all I want to know is where are those $20 bills going?
It's a fair question. I'm sorry that it's happening to you, Mary, but find yourself another bank machine.
I certainly will, and I hope someone else is hearing this and will be able to call in to express if it happened to them, what they've done about it, and how they got their money back from that establishment.
Fair enough. I appreciate the time, Mary. You're welcome.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, we're almost up against the news. There was a caller there who wants to talk about something that they found on Topsail Beach. Is that back on the air, Dave? Okay, let's see here. Where am I going, David? I can't see your fingers. Okay, so that person has apparently hung up, and we wanted to give out the information. Sometimes we have a bit of success, even though it's not the mandate or the goal of the show to play Lost and Found necessarily, but sometimes it's been quite helpful. Let's check in on the Twitter box, or as one of the listeners wants me to call it, the Xbox. Oh, she's back. Okay, let's do this. Line number 5. Joanne, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Patty.
Hi.
This is my name is Joanne Stone, and I live in CBS. I was at Topsail Beach yesterday, and I've lost my fob.
Uh-oh.
I couldn't drive my car home. I couldn't do anything. Now, I had heard that somebody picked up a fob in the bathroom, but I was not on the beach. I was there with some senior citizens up on the benches, not even at the tables or anywhere else. I was not on the rocks or anything, just there on the grass on a bench on Topsail Beach. I was there from about 3:30, about 3 o'clock on.
Okay. And obviously your effort to go back and find it has been fruitless.
Yeah, so I want you to, if it's possible, to put out my name and my phone number, and if anybody has picked up the fob, they can call me.
Sure. Well, you're live on the air right now, so let's go ahead and give out your number, or you can leave it with David if you prefer.
Okay, that's what I'll do. I'll leave it with David. Is that the best thing to do?
You know, sometimes I think it is the best thing because you never know who's going to hear the number and just start pestering you for who knows what reason, for their own kicks, I suppose. So I just think it's a little bit better, I'll use that word, if David just has a number. So if anybody picked up a fob on the grassy area of Topsail Beach yesterday, please do indeed call David and we'll put you in contact.
Yes, that would be great. It could have been in the washroom, and it could have been by the first layer as you're going down where the benches are.
Okay.
To the left, to the right. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Joanne. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Pat's in the queue to talk about the Grace Hospital Nurses Residence. Don't go away.
Nutrition, exercise, keeping the cold at bay. Whatever keeps you feeling great, the Wellness and Healthy Lifestyle Show on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the program. Let's roll. Line number 3. Pat, you're on the air. Hi, Pat.
Hello.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Great. How about you?
Thanks for having me on, sir.
No problem.
I have a reply here on Minister Abbott's statement as of June 16th, Sunday, concerning the test results of the testing of asbestos at the Grace Hospital residence site.
Yep.
I have a copy of 5 test results performed by them a couple of days after I contacted the engineer, and that was the same guy that gave me those test results. He's the same engineer that said dust can't blow that far to be on me over here, right? I'm 150 feet from the black fence, if you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
That surrounds the whole property. And the site itself is probably a couple hundred, probably 400 meters from me. I don't know. But, like, you know, dust and wind can move mountains, if you want to speak like that. And I just wanted to get it out there that the results that the minister is talking about is not the one test that I performed and the one test that I had sent away to a accredited lab is not the same results that what the minister is talking about. My results are 5% above the legal limits. And I just wanted to get that out there. And he said anybody with more information can contact him. Well, the only way I can contact him is through you. I tried phoning him, and I always got run around by somebody else, right? I never got to express myself to the minister about anything. So that's basically all I had to say about that, Patty. I would just want to clarify that the tests that he's talking about are tests that they performed themselves, and I got 5 tests here that they did, and none detected. So where did my crap come from? Where did that come from? That ended up on all the cars in this neighborhood on that Sunday morning. And as far as the dust, you walk up to Shoppers Drug Mart from here on Saturday when he just got started, and you can see the cloud dust coming over on all the neighbors where I'm at right here, and to me, that didn't bother me because it's only dust. The rain will wash that off. It'll blow away. the place is going to be gone. That horrible-looking building, that nest for rats and everything else will be gone. And everybody was happy, not knowing that there was going to be all contain asbestos. So there were 20-something days knocking that down with the excavators. And I don't doubt that they didn't find any asbestos where they made the test, in the floors and in some of the walls. But somewhere along the way, someone missed the boat, because tests don't lie. And I'm going to be doing a follow-up on this with the video and everything else of what I did. So that's basically all I have to say, Patty. Thanks.
Fair enough, Pat. And if you want to send me something, I will forward it along to the Minister's office and ask them to respond to me.
Okay, I can do that too, probably.
Yeah, just send me an email, openline@vocm.com. And it just stands to reason. A building constructed when that building was absolutely contained asbestos. And the Minister said their testing found nothing substantive, was the word that they used. But they said ongoing information will be gathered. So if you send me something, I'll send it along and I'll see if I can get a reaction.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, do that.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Pat.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. And dust can't travel 150 feet? In what world is that a reality? Anyway, let's keep going. Line number 6, say good morning to the PC member for Grand Falls, Windsor. Buckins, that's Chris Tibbs. Chris, you're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly. How are you?
Not bad, I suppose. How about you?
Oh, just enjoying the heat now in Central, and I suppose we're going to get some more over the next couple of days. So that's
apparently
what to look forward to.
Yeah.
Patty, what I wanted to talk about this morning was the family care team here in Grand Falls, Windsor. But before I get to it, I just wanted to give a really quick shout out and a huge thank you to all those who participated in Ronald County Hospice, the Hike for Hospice that happened on Saturday. Lots of people showed up. I think they raised about $70,000 with the help of Caliber Mining. And as you know, the hospice is open. It's taking a lot of pressure off our healthcare center here in Grand Falls, Windsor. We've had about 16 residents go through, I believe. And those residents, we've had a wedding over there, Patty, so far. We've had a gentleman, I believe, in his 90s that they managed in his last couple days to take him down on a side-by-side behind the mill into the woods for a proper boil-up. And you know what? That's what hospice is all about, and we're so happy to have it right here in Grand Falls, Windsor.
So we're talking about the Lionel Kelland Hospice, right?
Yes, sir, that is correct. It's becoming a huge success, and it's not just people in Grand Falls, Windsor. That's taken so many residents within the central region now. I mean, down the south coast, out west, and a lot of families are being very surprised about how successful it is, the accommodations that are there, and the team itself, Patty. The team itself over there. This is not a job for them; it's a lifestyle. And Dr. John Campbell will probably kill me for saying this, but that man has put so much into this. It's not even funny, and he's so proud to have it right here. And we are so proud as well, and it's helping a lot of people, so we're happy with that.
Well, hospice care, and I believe that's only a hospice care facility in the province, if I'm not mistaken. So a bunch of things. It was remarkable to me just how much money they were able to raise. It was in the millions.
Yeah, it was in the million, and it continues on. And it truly is a community-supported program at its finest, and it is successful. And, Patty, if you ever get the opportunity to Central over the summer, over the next year, I think that you should be more than happy to stop in and take a look at it, and it's absolutely phenomenal over there.
I probably will have cause to be in Central. One of my children is living out there these days. So
there you go. Yeah, perfect. Well, before I run out of time, Patty, I want to move on to the family care team that we were hoping to get here in Grand Falls, Windsor, to take some of the support off those core doctors and healthcare professionals that we have here that have been keeping this failing system up. I mean, we all know how many diversions come into Grand Falls, Windsor. They're so short-staffed down there. I visit the ER on a regular basis, Patty. I talk to the healthcare professionals here on a very regular basis. And to go down there and still see 5 and 6 beds in the hallway, stretchers, people there for days upon days, Patty, because there's nowhere to take them. It's absolutely terrible to see. It's a sin for the families. And, we talk about the plans, stuff like that, but I'm just wondering, can we get a plan in place before the announcement is made? This is not Field of Dreams, the movie Field of Dreams, where if you build it, they will come. If you announce it, they will come. We need a plan in place, Patty, in order to get that family care team in place. And this is not to diminish the work that a lot of people have done, including the Community Healthcare Coalition here in Grand Falls, Windsor. A lot of people are trying to put a lot into this, but we just want the government to come up with a proper plan of retention and recruitment to get people in here, those healthcare professionals, before we make these big, huge announcements, giving everybody the hope that, 4,000 people here in Grand Falls, Windsor, surrounding area are going to have a doctor within the next year. don't make those announcements unless we have the plans in place, because this is what's happened and this is what we are left with today.
Yeah, I mean, they floated the concept of, they started small, obviously, and they were talking about 35 of these collaborative care clinics to be peppered around the province. And, of course, it's one thing to have a schedule about when they might open and have firm timelines. But then, of course, the biggest concern is staff. Again, there was one case here where it was a female doctor, family doctor. She had a full patient roster. She was operating the Paradise Mount Pearl, one or the other. Moved to one of the collaborative care clinics, did not take her entire roster with her, and so consequently what we did is we put a family doctor in this clinic to accept new patients, and all the patients that were left behind, of course, were left in the lurch. So just shuffling healthcare pros around is not going to be the answer. I do think, conceptually speaking, the collaborative care clinic are excellent ideas, but we've got to get them fully operational. Toot sweet. I appreciate the time, Chris. Anything else before we take a break?
Yeah, just real quick, Patty. Again, we need these plans before the photos come in and whatnot, and it's the same thing all around. And I just want to make sure, and I'm willing to work with anybody, including any ministers, whatnot, or anybody here. And, we do work on a regular basis with the healthcare professionals. I want to thank them for all the work they've done, but we need help here, because what's happening, Patty, is people are not being diagnosed and people are dying. And we have to call it exactly what it is. If somebody has an ailment, they could have went to the healthcare center. And by the way, real quick, Patty, our Chile clinic here as well. They do great work over there. So it's supposed to be a walk-in clinic. They're not taking any more patients. If you haven't been seen there in the past year or a year or two, I'm not sure which one it is, you cannot see a doctor in our walk-in clinic anymore, Patty. So everybody's diverted to the emergency room, even if it's not an emergency. And unfortunately, people are not being diagnosed because they might feel an ailment sort of thing. Well, I'm not going down to emerge for 12 hours. I'm sure this will pass. It doesn't pass, and we are losing people at an alarming rate, Patty. I'll leave you with that, and I'll just say one more thing. June, of course, is Men's Mental Health Month. Please talk to somebody if you need to. For myself, Patty, my mental health takes a real kick, and if I don't have proper exercise, proper diet, vitamin D, sunshine, all this stuff, if you need to talk to somebody, speak with somebody. You do not need to suffer in silence. Thank you very much, Patty. Enjoy your week.
100%. Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye.
So long. Bye-bye.
That's Chris Tibbs, PC member of Grand Falls, Windsor, Buckins. All right, and speaking of proper diet, I will get a walk-in today, no doubt about that. And it's Taco Tuesday. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
I want to go a few PSAs first. Pedestrian Mall is going to open up this Thursday. Weather's looking good, so hopefully people will get out and take advantage. This is the provincial road, Pitts Memorial Drive from Kilbride to Water is going to be closed for a month. That's going to be very disruptive. It's not something the city controls, but people need to plan around that. It's going to be very disruptive. A month's a long time.
Tis that.
We've got a town hall. I should say the province is organizing a town hall re the Kemount Terrace School this Tuesday evening, not tonight, but next week, from 6:38 p.m. at the Kemount Terrace, the Kemount Community Center. We want to have a big turnout. Looks like there's going to be maybe up to 3 ministers there, so we want the community to come out. I mean, that obviously affects residents all around that area, not just Kemount Terrace, so hopefully we're going to have a really good turnout. So people can ask the tough questions and hear the answers directly from the ministers. We've got, so Mount Hope did another cleanup Thursday night, and again Sunday. They're doing great work. Just want to encourage people to check them out on Facebook and join in and help clean up the, not just the city. They did Topsail Beach Sunday past. I finally got to do my cleanup with First Light on Wednesday morning, I think it was, and we had some good weather. It was good to see that. So I want to encourage people to get out and clean up. We've got, I mean, we all know about the issues with the speeding and throughout my ward and throughout the city. I have a friend who used to own a bus business, and he used to always emphasize to me that the two main accidents he would see amongst his drivers was when either they didn't back in to a parking place, so then they would back out and hit something. And the other thing was not coming to a complete stop where the momentum of your vehicle goes forward, then comes back at stop signs. I had one lady terrified in the Gooseberry, Emerson, Downing Street, Shea Street area. She's been out videotaping because now she can't unsee it. She said school buses, it doesn't matter what the vehicle is, they just don't come to a stop at the stop signs. And people, if they think about it, if you don't come to a full stop, you've really kind of not committed to stopping, and you're putting pressure on yourself to keep driving. And that's where a lot of these T-bones happen and a lot of these accidents. And pedestrians, you're not giving yourself enough time to look left and right and see if there's a pedestrian entering, the intersection, of course, because that is a deemed crosswalk, wherever you have a stop sign at an intersection. So just want to call on people, just remind people, back into your parking places, and more importantly, come to a complete stop and let the momentum of the vehicle transfer backwards. And that gives you that time to look and see what's coming and to avoid accidents.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of common sense, but I know that we've got major issues with distracted driving and people getting hurt. And I'm really proud of the citizens that are reaching out to me from all over the city. However, we've got to try and turn that into action, and hopefully, I'm not sure, I know you reach a lot of people, so I'm hoping that can make a difference.
Hope so.
So, it occurred to me, I actually was at Larkhall Academy school leaving, and the incredible diversity of the students. There's in Larry's book, there's 54 nationalities represented, which is an unimaginable number. And when you're sitting there and watching all the children come out, it's just so beautiful. But of course, then I'm sitting there thinking the impact of child abuse on children in general, and through the work that my wife and I and other people have done, we've learned that it's not just in the moment that the damage is done, but that it has long-term consequences to the children, including increased risks of heart disease, cancers, diabetes, and then, of course, the mental health issues and the addictions. And I'm thinking how, we have so many high-profile cases right now running parallel through the court system. And, of course, people haven't been found guilty, so, we have to be careful. However, if these were murderers, there would be a different conversation. I mean, Marcus Hicks is up to over 200 charges, and he's only a young person.
And some of that behavior dates back to when he was a teenager.
Yeah, and people don't, because a lot of this is very discreet, because a lot of times you're dealing with young people being abused, so the public doesn't necessarily get the details of it. But I will tell people there are lots of offenders in this province who've been found guilty of tens and tens, like over 50 offenses against children. And one particular example, this person wasn't even 25 when they were charged, found guilty. So within our province, obviously this is not just our province, but we can only control our province. First of all, I want to applaud people who had the courage to come forward with so many challenges stacked against them, because I really do believe that a lot of these cases are coming out because people are feeling like the stigma is being reduced, and that we are prosecuting these people. But one thing, and not to make people feel guilty if for whatever reason they can't come forward, and there's a million myriad of good reasons why someone just is not in a position to be able to come forward. But what I always think of is, so imagine if someone hadn't come forward with Marcus Hicks, and then there are other teachers right now who have been charged that are in their 70s. So imagine how many potential victims Marcus Hicks could have perpetrated if he got to retire. And so, unfortunately, these are generally not isolated incidents when you get into these situations. And so, I just want to call on people, if they see something, please make a report. And obviously, be there for people who have been. It's so difficult to see, because I unfortunately see it firsthand, the damage that child abuse does to individuals, and it never goes away, and it's always there. And if we could just stop that as soon as possible. Children are resilient. If we can stop the abuse and create a safe space and get the proper support for a young person when they have been abused, the outcomes are way better than them not reporting it until they're in their 30s or 40s or wherever, and carrying and being scarred, and the trauma that goes along with that and the damage. So, I just want to keep, Connie Pikes comes on and gives you the statistics. Over 400 cases last month in our courts. Just imagine if they were murder cases. And I got to tell you, sometimes I wonder what's worse.
Well, I don't have much to say to that. I think I think everyone agrees that child abuse is egregious, and it's a fair example of evil. I'm not going to go down the comparison with murder. Someone's dead. Tom, anything else quickly before I run out of time here this morning?
No, everyone, have a great week and get out and enjoy the pedestrian mall on Thursday.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye. All right, there you go. That will be the last word. We're not going to try to sneak anyone else in, give them the short shrift with only about 1 minute and 45 seconds to go here in the program. Just a quick programming note for my fellow volleyball fans, because they've mentioned Marcus Hicks, and that story makes me literally sick to my stomach, knowing the fact that, anyway, Canada versus Japan, World Cup of Volleyball, might be worth checking out. Let's check in on Twitter before we run out of time this morning. We're VOCM Openline. Follow us there. There's a couple of people have reached out. We want to thank you for being willing and wanting to help Barbara, who called from Arnold's Cove earlier. I'll follow up with David and Barbara to see if we can get something sorted out for that lovely lady who's obviously done a lot for her community. Email address is openline@vocm.com, and of course our favourite is when you join us live on the programme. Just a friendly reminder, it doesn't matter if I brought it up or if you've heard it in the past from other callers. If it's important to you, that's good enough for me. No issue too big, no issue too small. And so if there's something you'd like to hear broached on the programme, zip me off an email and I'll include it off the top some morning, and maybe they'll provoke further calls. All right, good show today. Big thanks to everyone who supports the programme, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer David Williams, I'm your host Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.